Good day everyone. My name is Ian Musa, fourth year student in Colegio de Montalban, taking up Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, major in Human Resource Development Management. In this video, we will talk about big branches in our OD family tree. My report is the continuation of Mr. Ali Puon and Miss Solar. Mr. Ali Puon was reported the introduction. If you guys remembered, he discussed the On the Shoulders of Giants and the origins of OD's ancient roots. Then Miss Solar was reported the big branches in our OD family tree. Then she discussed the four giants who founded the field of OD. If you guys remembered, Miss Solar was discussed Frederick Taylor and Kurt Lewin. Now, my topic is the continuation of report of Miss Solar. If you guys remembered, Miss Solar said that Frederick Taylor was the founder of what we call scientific management. And Kurt Lewin, the grandfather of OD, anyone who has ever uttered the words feedback, action research, group dynamics, self-managed work teams, or force field has been infected by Kurt Lewin, known today as the grandfather of applied behavioral science. Frederick Taylor, the first in chronological order, set the stage. The second and third, Kurt Lewin and Wilfred Bion, developed and applied the principles. And the last, Douglas Mcgregor, made them available to managers of organizations and the general public. They are also among the first names on the origins of OD timeline. See in figure 3.1. Before I start about my report, now let us talk about who is Wilfred Bion. Wilfred Bion was an influential English psychoanalyst who became president of the British Psychoanalytical Society from 1962 to 1965. After the outbreak of the First World War, he served in the Tank Corps as a tank commander in France and was awarded to become a second lieutenant in Tank Corps. After World War I, Bion studied history at the Queen's College, Oxford, earning a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1922. Before studying medicine at University College London, Bion spent 7 years in psychotherapeutic training at the Tabista Clinic, an experience he regarded in retrospect as having had some limitations. He wanted to train a psychoanalyst, and in 1938, he began training analysis with John Reckman, but this was brought to an end by the advent of the Second World War. Bion was recommissioned in the Royal Army Medical Corps as a lieutenant on 1 April 1940 and worked in a number of military hospitals including Northfield Military Hospital, the Hollymore Hospital, Birmingham, where he initiated the first Northfield experiment. The entire group at the Tavistock had in fact been taken into the army and were working on the new methods of treatment for psychiatric casualties, those suffering post-traumatic stress or shell shock, as it was then known. Now, we have an idea who is Wilfred Bion. Now let us talk about the Tavistock method. Bion's theory is based in a large part on his work managing a rehabilitation unit for psychiatric patients during the Second World War and his later work at the Tabista Clinic. Let me tell you guys about what happened in Bion's theory and the Tavistock method. While Lewin was working in America, on the other side of the Atlantic, a British psychiatrist named Wilfred Bion was responding to the fallout of World War II. Bion in 1940 was asked by London Tavistock Institute to work with traumatized and shell-shocked soldiers from the battlefield. There were too many to treat individually, so Bion brought them together into groups. His intention was to move around the group, working with one veteran at a time, while the group basically observed and supported non-verbally. In the process, he likely will discover the power of the group. The soldiers couldn't sit still while Bion worked with someone else, and they spontaneously began to share their experience, reaching out their bodies as they helped each other. They were also learning from each other, not just from Bion. The psychiatrist and authority figure, Bion came to see that the way leaders conduct themselves create predictable responses from those they are leading. That is the story about what happened in Bion's theory. Let me continue guys my report for you to understand about what happened in Bion's theory. His central theory is that in every group, two groups exist, the work group and the basic assumption group. Effectively, two dimensions of behavior within the group. The work group is primarily concerned with the task and focus of the group. And usually in groups that work well, there is clear focus and purpose. Bion was interested in why groups sometimes don't work and are ineffective, and reflective that this was because some basic assumptions were at play. The work group is that element of group functioning that is concerned with the primary task or work of the group. The mature work group is aware of its purpose and can define its task. Its members work cooperatively as separate and discrete members who willingly choose to belong to the group because they identify with interests of the group. This group test its conclusions, seeks knowledge, and learns from its experience. Bion notes that this level of maturity in the work group is very rare. Of primary interest to Bion was the question of why groups employ ineffective and self-contradicting behavior that lessen the effectiveness of the group. Bion suggests that this because, in addition to the work group, the basic assumption group is at play. The basic assumption group can be thought of as they as if group, meaning the group behaves as if certain tacit assumptions were held by the members. These assumptions are hidden in the group subconscious, outside the awareness of the group members. Bion identified three types of basic assumption groups: the dependency, the fight-flight, and the pairing groups. Dependency group. The primary goal of the dependency group is to have its members protected by one individual, usually the leader. The group's behavior implies that the leader is all-knowing and all-powerful, and that group members are ignorant, inadequate, and immature. The intelligence and power of the leader are never questioned or tested by the group. Why? Because no one can possibly fulfill this role. The leader inevitably arouses the disappointment and hostility of the group. Eventually, the group will dismiss the leader and appoint another group member in her place. Fortunately, the new leader is destined to face a similar fate. The fight-flight group. The fight-flight group assumes that it must preserve itself at all costs, and that this can be done only by fighting or fleeing from someone or something. The group has no tolerance for weakness and expects casualties since salvation of the group is more important than the needs of individual members. The fight-flight leader must inspire great courage and self-sacrifice and lead the group against a common enemy. If none exist, the leader will create one. A leader who fails to afford the group the opportunity for retreat or attack will consider ineffective and ultimately ignored. The pairing group. The pairing group assumes that the group has met for the purposes of reproduction to bring forth of Savior or Messiah. In this group, two people get together to carry out the task of creating a new leader who will solve all the group's problems, save the group from its own incompetence, and bring them in utopia. A new leader or idea resulting from the union often will be annihilated by the group, allowing the group maintain an air or hope and anticipation that another, as yet unborn leader will save it from feelings of despair and destruction, both its own and others. Implications for the practitioner. Because of the complexity of this theory and the hidden nature of the basic assumption group, it is often difficult for a practitioner to identify which basic assumption is at play, particularly in highly structured group settings. An educated practitioner will be more likely to observe basic assumption behaviors in groups that lack structure and organization. According to Bion, each of us has a tendency to enter into the unconscious aspect of group life to a different degree, just as everyone has a tendency toward differing levels of cooperation within the work group. For the practitioner, an understanding of the basic assumption concepts can shape observation and help group members bring hidden assumption into awareness so the group can begin to examine them critically. When the leader takes responsibility for simply raising awareness of the group's process to the group, participants are more likely to respond with what Bion called work. The fourth option, a participant who is engaged in work is authentically staying in touch with what is happening and working through whatever conflicts emerge to the learning that exists on the other side. Vayan discovered how to empower a group to take responsibility for its own work and learning. The origin of socio-technical consulting and self-managed work teams. The term socio-technical system was coined by Eric Trest and Ken Banford and Fred Emery in the World War II era based on their work with workers in English coal mines at the Tavistock Institute in London. Socio-technical system pertains to theory regarding the social aspects of people and society and technical aspect of organizational structure and process. Here, technical does not necessarily imply material technology. The focus is on procedures and related knowledge. It refers to the ancient Greek term techne. Technical is a term used to refer to structure and a broader sense of technicalities. Socio-technical refers to the interrelatedness of social and technical aspects of an organization or the society as a whole. Bion and the Tavistock Institute recognized in the late 1940s and early 1950s the relationship of the larger social network to the work, structure, and technical system, setting the stage for the naming and exploration of the system thinking we know today. Their finding, it was not enough to focus on individuals or groups internally. You have to look at the structure and systems that surrounded them. Work redesign and job enrichment were also system approaches to worker motivation, with Frederick Herzberg's 1959 being the foremost explorer of applying the insights from Bion to motivating employees. These approaches recognize that an employee's productivity and creativity have more to do with the way the job is designed and the system around that employee than within the characteristics of the person. The Tavistock Institute had seen and highlighted this truth in the earlier coal mine studies. Douglas McGregor. Douglas Murray McGregor was an American management professor at the MIT Sloan School of Management and president of Antioch College from 1948 to 1954. He also taught at the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. His 1960 book, The Human Side of Enterprise, had profound influence on education practices. McGregor was a student of Abraham Maslow. He has contributed much to the development of the management and motivational theory, and best known for his Theory X and Theory Y as presented in his book, The Human Side of Enterprise 1960, which proposed that the manager individual assumptions about human nature and behavior determine how individuals manage their employees. If you believe that your team members dislike their work and have little motivation, then according to McGregor, you'll likely use an authoritarian style of management. This approach is very hands-on and usually involves micromanaging people's work to ensure that it gets done properly. McGregor called this Theory X. On the other hand, if you believe that your people take pride in their work and see it as a challenge, then you'll more likely adopt a participative management style. Managers who use this approach trust their people to take ownership of their work and do it effectively by themselves. Mark Gregor called this Theory Y. The approach that you take will have significant impact on your ability to motivate your team members. So, it's important to understand how your perceptions of what motivates them can shape your management style. We'll now take a more in-depth look at the two different theories and discover how and when they can be useful in the workplace. Theory X and Theory Y 1954. Theory X and Theory Y were first explained by McGregor in his book, The Human Side of Enterprise, and they refer two styles of management. Authoritarian was the Theory X and the participative was the Theory Y. Theory X. Theory X managers tend to take a pessimistic view of their people and assume that they are naturally unmotivated and dislike work. As a result, they think that the team members need to be prompted, rewarded, or punished constantly to make sure that they complete their task. Work in organizations that are managed like this can be repetitive, and people are often motivated with a carrot and stick approach. Performance appraisals and remunerations are usually based on the tangible results, such as sales, figures, or product output, and are used to control staff and keep tabs on them. This style of management assumes that workers dislike their work, avoid responsibility, and need constant direction, have to be controlled, forced, and threatened to deliver work, need to be supervised at every step, have no incentive to work or ambition, and therefore need to be enticed by reward to achieve goals. According to Mcgregor, organizations with a Theory X approach tend to have several tiers of managers and supervisors to oversee and direct workers. Authority is rarely delegated and control remains firmly centralized. Managers are more authoritarian and actively intervene to get things done. Although Theory X management has largely fallen out of fashion in recent times, big organizations may find that adopting it is unavoidable due to the sheer number of people that they employ and the tight deadlines that they have to meet. Theory Y. Theory Y managers have an optimistic, positive opinion of their people and they use as decentralized participative management style. This encourages a more collaborative, trust-based relationship between managers and their team members. People have greater responsibility and managers encourage them to develop their skills and suggest improvements. Appraisals are regular but, unlike Theory X organizations, they are used to encourage open communication rather than control staff. Theory Y organization also give employees frequent opportunities for promotion. This style of management assumes that the workers are happy to work on their own initiative, more involved in decision making, self-motivated to complete their task, enjoy taking ownership of their work, seek and accept responsibility and need little direction, view work as fulfilling and challenging, and lastly, solve problems creatively and imaginatively. Theory Y has become more popular among organizations. This reflects workers' increasing desire for more meaningful careers that provide them with more than just money. It also viewed by McGregor as superior to Theory X, which he says reduces workers to cogs in a machine and likely demotivates people in the long term. What is different about OD? Our OD grandparents, Taylor, Lewin, Bion, and McGregor, handed this fundamental truth down to us, each in his own way, finding out what is actually happening, that is research, and why it is happening, that is diagnosis, and in getting all the data on the table where it is seen and discussed by the stakeholders in a safe environment as the power to change people and systems. That is actions. And that's all about my report. Thank you for listening and watching my video.